Welcome back, lads, to another Bannerlord map making episode. Today we're taking a closer look at my new map, Green Lake. In the last episode, things were starting to come together, but we were still quite a way off finishing. In this episode, a fair bit more detail's been added. There's still more to do, but I'm keen just to show you how things are shaping up, to give you a flavour of what's to come. So we're looking at the castle. You can already see there's quite a lot more detail, with trees, rocks, fencing, flowers in the grass. Obviously these tracks through the mud, so the detail is starting to come together. But before we look at the castle and what's changed there, let's take a look at some of the new areas that you guys haven't seen yet. So last time we looked at this village, it was just the one house and the bridge. I've now fleshed it out with some additional housing units. Based on my thoughts from the last episode, I've tried to keep this as open as possible. So let's say one of the attacking forces is spawning over here and they're coming down this bank. The control point's next to the well. The enemy is mounting a defense here on the hillside. If you've got 250 players, you're not all going to be able to attack up here. It's quite open, but not quite open enough. So probably what you'll find, half the army will charge up this hill. The other half might try and get round the flanks coming from the other side. Most importantly with this village, I've tried to make sure that it's as open as possible. I wanted to make sure there weren't too many objects, cluttering it, because I wanted to make sure it was open, freedom of movement, especially because I want to make this appropriate for cavalry charges to come through. So going with our scenario where people were attacking up here and round here, the attacker's cavalry may decide to come across the ford here, up and round, and maybe charge into the enemy from the back as well. They'll have to be a little bit careful because there are a few props in the way, but I wanted to limit the number of props, if that makes sense. So cavalry will have to pay attention to make sure they don't crash into these, but at the same time there's enough room to maneuver. So cavalry could charge through, take out a few people, charge out the other side, back down this bank, and then up and round for another charge. Yeah, so it's starting to come together. I think if I was going to critique this, it currently looks a bit abandoned. I think maybe with a few more props and entities, we could bring this town to life a little bit. Because at the moment, it just looks like there's nobody there. That's also because there's nobody there, but you guys know what I mean. You know what I mean. I want to make it look like it's lived in. So that's how one of the control points is shaping up. If we go across the bridge here, there's also a nice hut down under the bridge. Maybe a troll lives here. And there's also a kind of entry point to the bridge on this side now. I think last time we saw this was just a grassy bank. So generally across the landscape, I tried to update the ground textures a bit, so there's more rocks in the grass, some flowers as we approach the riverbank, and a bit more variety in the foliage. I think it could probably do with a bit more variety, maybe every now and here, a few bushes or something, just to really kind of spice things up a little bit. But I'm quite happy with how this is shaping up so far. So let's go under the bridge and let's head over to the next control point. So from the town, you can go across here, and this right here is where the next control point is going to be positioned. So I think I mentioned in the last episode, I wanted this one to be quite open, to make sure that cavalry really had the advantage in this area. There are a few cover points to duck behind, but certainly nothing that's going to protect a large army. If you're quick, you might be able to get behind one of these as cavalry are charging in, but it's going to take good timing. I think this area might need a bit more variety in terms of the look and feel. Maybe I could have a few small cliff faces here, but things that are traversable. It's definitely starting to come together though. I think the reason why I'm a little bit quiet is because I still am trying to figure this area out. I like how it's looking so far, but something's missing. I'm not sure what yet, but I'll let you guys know. Obviously, if you guys have any thoughts about what could go here, let me know in the comments. So going back the way we came, back through the town, let's go back to the castle and see what's different here. So going through the gates, we're already beginning to see a bit more detail in the ground. There's a bit more grass, a few barrels and things dotted around. I think there's a pile of shields over there. Detail is still very much happening at the moment. I haven't finished this, but there's a bit more detail coming together just to kind of try out some ideas. I tend not to go too detailed right from the word go. I like to get the general look and feel right first, just because, you know, if you do add all the minor detail and you want to change something, it becomes a bit more difficult to move stuff when there's too many entities. So I think this is unlikely to change though. Just to show you a few changes. Obviously we've got some barrels here. We've got this new rooftop, for want of a better word. A few things to hide behind or hide under. Going around this side, I've also got a bit more detail in here, so I've decided that this is going to be a pub. So I need to get rid of the grass problem in here, but you know, we've got a bar. Once I finalise this, you know, we'll make sure there's lots of bottles and things and racks on the back. Maybe some chairs around the tables. I think the challenge here is going to be to make sure that if people are in here, there is space to manoeuvre and to fight. So I've tried to put the tables up against the walls just so that the walkways are as large as they can be. Missed out a table here because, you know, I wanted to make sure that there was like a kind of entrance lobby. But yeah, TBC. Nice signpost outside as well. I think I'm quite liking how this is looking too. There's also, you know, some stones outside the building as you go in. And obviously with the extra detail we added outside, that same foliage is continued here into the castle. So in the main castle courtyard, because this is quite a well-traversed area, I wanted to make it a little bit more muddy. Still patches of grass, but I think there's going to be elements of mud, you know, where there's been lots of footfall, trying to kind of tell that story that this is a busy city. You know, too much grass would make it look a bit overgrown and a bit like it's been abandoned. So the mud, the tracks, I think all really help kind of tell that story that, you know, this is a castle with plenty of footfall. We've got a new well in the middle. I guess we did have a well in the town, but I needed something to just fill out this empty space that was in the middle. Not too much has changed on the actual castle courtyard. This all pretty much remains the same, albeit we've got a bit of hay in the stables. Again, more detail is needed here, but we'll see how this shapes up. But yeah, once again, I'm quite happy with how this is shaping up. I think at the moment, small clipping issue there, there's this nice kind of platform here, but because of the asset used, there isn't actually any access to this area. It would have been nice to actually have had a place where archers could station themselves up here and fire down. I think maybe in future, I'll see if I can swap out this pre-made asset maybe with something that I've custom built myself, just so that people can maybe go up some steps on the side, get in here and use it as a platform to fire archer arrows from. Yeah, we'll see. It's an idea right now. Going through, I've added a bit more detail here. You know, we've got these nice kind of like wooden walkways. I can't remember if these were in the last episode, but we've also got some doors as well that have been added. They're all open, you know, these aren't functional doors, they're just here to look pretty. But I thought again, it kind of all adds to that castle look and feel. Round the corner here, there is actually another way into the castle courtyard, which I hadn't considered in the last episode. So players can actually go up this tower and out onto the ramparts down here. Although they can't get into the keep, if we look over the edge here, I'm pretty sure units will be able to kind of come off here without taking too much fall damage and make their way into the courtyard for a sneak attack, maybe behind the enemy. It's quite a risky maneuver. I did consider putting a staircase in here, maybe to make it an official approach, but actually in the end I decided not to. But there's a really good reason for it. I thought if players want to jump off here and launch a surprise attack, you know, it's a gamble, because if they're going to come this way, they need to be prepared for the fact that they might get cornered in. There's no way to retreat. So if they're coming this way, you know, basically just be aware that you've got to go all in. You've really got to commit if you're attacking down here. There's no point in coming down here with half your army, because, you know, you'll get boxed in. So it's an option. It'll probably be a less popular option, but it's an option nonetheless. Another issue which I noticed with the castle is in the corner here. If units are on the ramparts or players are on the ramparts, if they fell onto this roof and then into this gap, potentially they could become trapped. I guess there is a small walkway here, so I could solve that perhaps by making this into some sort of small garden courtyard, maybe with a gateway here, just so that if anyone does accidentally fall into this pit, they have a way of getting out. You know, while there's a gap here, this certainly wasn't intentional. Might not even be big enough actually for a player to pass, but yeah, there's definitely an issue here that needs to be solved before we start testing this with real players. Just to kind of zoom out, I think the castle is really coming together. It probably won't be long until this is finished. I think the layout is finalized now. I don't think there's going to be any changes. Really, the main thing to happen now is I just need to flesh out the interiors with a few props and assets. Coming in this building, you know, you can see I've added some of those wall partitions that I talked about before. Not too many, because, you know, I didn't want to make it so that players could hide away in rooms, but certainly, you know, if someone was coming in here, you could hide a couple of guys around here and surprise them. Upstairs as well, I'm just playing around with a few ideas, but there might be a bedroom here. I might add some partitions to try and, you know, make this into 2 rooms, perhaps with a doorway. We'll see, we'll see. Nothing happening on the upstairs again. So the only other thing that's been modified since the last time is down here. This is just a rough concept. I don't know if I'm going to keep this. I don't know if the map needs it. But I was entertaining the idea of having like almost like a little ship or port on the lake. Because let's face it, if you've got a lake this big, maybe, you know, through the valleys, the river goes around, there's access to the sea, you probably would have a port. So, you know, it makes sense from a story writing perspective, but from a gameplay perspective, it's a bit out of the way. You know, if you're being tasked with capturing a control point here, here, or here, and you're spawning in one of these 2 locations, there isn't really a reason to go to this. So if it's going to be there, it's really just going to be for aesthetic purposes. I don't anticipate people actually using this. They might just look at it as they come around the corner and think, "Ooh, that's pretty." Yeah, so I think, guys, that's kind of how the map is shaping up so far. I think a bit like the last project, we're getting to a point now where the general layout is kind of final, and really all we're going to be doing moving forwards is doing like a kind of polish pass to try and make some of the areas, you know, a bit like this one that look a bit bland, turn it into something that's a bit more interesting. But we'll see. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.